has been 96 hours since Chinese troops dismantled their tents in the Ladakh region. But what provoked China to set camps in the DBO sector in the first place? After several failed meetings, what led to the sudden return? Now, the government wants us to believe that there were no negotiations, no back-channel talks. We reveal the complete inside story behind the standoff and how the government's version may be far, far from the truth.
This is a picture taken in July 2011. Chinese PLA troops deep inside Indian territory in the Demchok region of Ladakh. The troops destroying Indian tents as they made an aggressive incursion. It was attempts like this that forced the Indian army into reassessing its Ladakh territory. With a plan to aggressively deploy troops and lay tracks and fortifications on the LAC. On April 15th, it was this aggressive positioning by India that got the Chinese fretting, with the PLA setting up tents in the DBO sector and demanding instead a pullback from India in its flag meeting.
Even as the India-China standoff has ended at the DBO sector after 21 long days, a lot has happened behind the curtains than what meets the eye. Sources telling Times Now that the Indian army, which after decades was in a position to counter the Chinese aggression, was not kept on the same page by the China Study Group.
Times Now has learned that the stand that the army took didn't go down too well with the China Study Group comprising of this man. Shiv Shankar Menon, the National Security Advisor and Secretaries of MEA, MOD and MHA.
While the Army Chief General Bikram Singh was summoned twice by the Prime Minister and the National Security Advisor to explain India's position at the line of actual control, sources indicating that this ensued a Cold War between the Indian Army and the China Study Group, with the China Study Group actually vetoing the Indian Army's stance to actually do an aggressive posturing at the line of actual control in the DBO sector and the Chumar sector.
The political leadership and the bureaucrats then got into the act and began negotiations with the Chinese. And the compromise. Indian troops would cease their aggressive posturing in return for Chinese withdrawal from the DBO.
My understanding, if I know China well, having worked with them for about 10 years, having been a corps commander, having been on the India-China Joint Working Group and Expert Group, Chinese will now reaffirm their claim that their claim line remains up to the place where they were there on 15th of April.
India's External Affairs Ministry had claimed a victory after the Chinese withdrawal. But new facts now show the face-off between Indian Army and China Study Group and the MEA could have meant a strategic retreat for India in a sector constantly vulnerable to Chinese aggression.
Even as India and China may have reached a compromise formula to end the stalemate at the DBO sector, the moot question remains: did India compromise against its strategic interest and give more than it should have? With video journalist Manoj in New Delhi, this is Aditya Raj Kaul for Times Now.